My name is Jack, and I run a small but thriving auto repair shop in Austin, Texas. It's not glamorous, but it's good work. People bring their cars to me, and I make sure they leave working better than they came. It's a place where you don't have to pretend to be something you're not, where the smell of motor oil is more familiar than perfume, and where hard work is appreciated over high society pleasantries. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my sister's life. Or at least, that's how she made it sound when she first started planning her wedding. Kate, my older sister, had always been the kind of person who wanted everything perfect. From the moment she got engaged, I knew it was going to be a production. It wasn't just about her and her fiancé, Ryan. It was about the glitz and glamour, the perfect photos, the big wedding with the kind of elegance she thought would impress the world. But I never expected that I'd be left out of the picture. A few months before the big day, Kate asked me for help. "I need you to cover the venue deposit," she said, her voice filled with the kind of sweetness that only comes when you need something. I wasn't surprised. Kate had always known how to get what she wanted. She'd been planning this wedding since she was a little girl, and now that the reality was setting in, she needed some cash to make it happen. Without hesitation, I agreed. After all, she was family, and I'd always been the one to step up when the going got tough. I'd helped my parents with everything from bills to home repairs over the years. I'd given them a hand when they were struggling, and I'd never expected anything in return. And when Kate needed help funding her dream wedding, I figured, why not? It's her big day. I paid the deposit for the venue without batting an eye. When the catering costs started to pile up, I covered that too. Even when she said she needed extra money for her wedding dress, I didn't hesitate. Sure, I was running my own business and working long hours, but I never thought twice about supporting my sister. After all, that's what family does, right? The wedding was only a few weeks away, and I thought everything was going smoothly. Then, one day, as I was scrolling through my social media feed, I saw a post that stopped me dead in my tracks. It wasn't just any post, it was the wedding invitation. A beautifully designed card, embossed with gold lettering, sitting on a backdrop of soft white satin. The caption read, "The countdown begins. Can't wait to celebrate with all my loved ones on the most special day of my life." I stared at it for a moment, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My stomach tightened, and I felt a sinking sensation. The comment section exploded with excitement. People I didn't even know were sharing their joy, commenting on how excited they were to be a part of this special event. My heart pounded as I scrolled, half hoping that I had just missed the invitation in the mail, that maybe it would show up later. But there it was. No invite. Not a single mention of me. At first, I told myself it was a mistake. Maybe my invitation got lost in the mail? Maybe Kate just hadn't gotten around to telling me yet. I had spent months helping her fund this wedding, and she hadn't even bothered to tell me in person that I wasn't going to be part of the celebration. I texted her right away. No drama, just a simple message, "Hey, I saw the post. I never got my invite. Did it get lost?" I waited for the three little dots to appear, waiting for her to respond. I stared at my phone, willing her to reply, but the dots never showed up. An hour passed, then two. It was getting late, and my frustration started to build. I thought about calling her, but I didn't want to seem desperate. So I just waited. By the time the sun had set, I had convinced myself that I was overreacting. Maybe Kate was busy, maybe she had forgotten. I couldn't let it get to me. But then, at 10:34 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Kate. "Hey, I was going to talk to you about this. I hope you understand, but we had to make some tough choices with the guest list. It's a very curated event. You know, we had to keep it elegant. No offense, but you don't really fit the vibe. I know you'll be happy for me from afar though. Love you." I stared at the message, my brain struggling to process it. Curated event? Don't fit the vibe? I read the words over and over again, each time feeling the sting more deeply. She wasn't just forgetting me, she had actively decided that I wasn't worthy of being part of her perfect day. I wasn't good enough for the wedding she'd dreamed of for years, the one that had more to do with her image than with her actual family. I sat there in disbelief, trying to make sense of it. I had paid for her wedding. I had bent over backward to make sure she had everything she needed. And now, I wasn't even good enough to sit in a chair and watch her marry the man she loved. It didn't make sense. But then again, maybe it did. Maybe I had been too blind to see it all along. The next few days were a blur. I walked around in a haze, trying to go about my daily routine at the shop, but every time I thought about Kate's message, a wave of anger and disbelief washed over me. How could she do that? How could she just shut me out like that, after everything I'd done for her? I wanted to confront her, to demand an explanation, but a part of me knew that it wouldn't do any good. The damage had already been done. The truth had come out in the cruelest way possible. Kate wasn't the sister I thought she was. She wasn't the person I had always believed would have my back when things got tough. And if I had to be honest with myself, maybe I'd always known this deep down. Maybe I had been fooling myself by thinking I could always make her happy, that I could be the brother who would always be there for her, no questions asked. I spent the next few days alternating between resentment and sadness. My shop was doing well, but every time I worked on a car, I found myself lost in thought, replaying the conversation with Kate. Every minute I spent working on engines or changing tires felt like a minute I was wasting my time, my energy, and my efforts on a family that didn't appreciate me. I tried calling her again, but she didn't pick up. She sent a message back almost immediately, as if she had been waiting for me to reach out. "Jack, I know this is hard, but it's just the way things had to be. I can't explain it all, but it's not personal. You've got to understand." Understand? Understand what? That she was choosing to be a stranger to me, to distance herself from everything I had sacrificed for her? That was the hardest pill to swallow. It was clear to me that I was nothing more than an afterthought to her. I had helped pay for her wedding, provided the funds for the venue, and supported her emotionally as she'd planned every detail of her special day, and now I wasn't even invited. She wanted to curate the event, make it all about her vision of perfection, but the truth was, she wasn't curating a celebration of love and family. She was curating a show, one that excluded anyone who didn't fit her idealized version of what her life should look like. That night, I sat in my small apartment, staring at the invitation that never came. I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, trying to ignore the anger bubbling up inside me. How could she? And why now, at the most important time of her life, was she showing me who she really was? I felt like I had been duped by the very person I had done everything for. I couldn't ignore the reality any longer. The Kate I knew wasn't the Kate I thought I knew. This wasn't some simple oversight, this was a conscious decision. She had made it clear, there was no place for me in her vision of the future. She wanted a perfect life, and I didn't fit the role of the supportive brother anymore. I had become a part of the past that she no longer had any room for. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I had always prided myself on being the guy who stepped up, who helped, who did the right thing, even when no one else would. I thought that was the kind of person people appreciated, especially family. But now, I realized that my generosity had been taken for granted. I had been nothing more than a stepping stone for Kate to achieve her dreams, and once she had what she wanted, I was no longer needed. The hurt was deep. But the anger, it was even deeper. I found myself picking up the phone again, staring at the screen as I debated what to do next. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the desire to finally tell her how I felt, how I had been manipulated and used. I didn't care if it ruined the wedding. At that point, nothing about it felt worth preserving anymore. Instead of calling her, I sent a message. I knew this would probably be the last time we would ever speak about it, but I needed to get it off my chest. You don't get it, Kate. You never did. You've made this all about you, and you've left me behind in the process. I helped you because I thought you were family. I thought that's what family did. But I guess I was wrong. You don't want me there, and you don't need me anymore. I'll never forget what you've done. Enjoy your perfect wedding, and remember, there's no turning back from this. I sat there for a long time after I sent it, staring at the screen as if I were waiting for her to reply, for her to say something that could make me feel better, that could make me feel like my words hadn't been in vain. But nothing came. No reply, no acknowledgement. I knew, deep down, that she wasn't going to change. The next day, I woke up feeling exhausted but strangely liberated. The weight of everything had lifted from my shoulders. It didn't matter if she replied or not, I had said what I needed to say. The silence was deafening, but it was also freeing. I could finally see the truth clearly. I had been living in a shadow of my own making, trying to make Kate happy, trying to live up to some expectation that only she had placed on me. I didn't need to be part of her perfect day. I didn't need her validation anymore. In fact, maybe it was time I stopped trying to be the perfect brother, the one who always made things right. Maybe it was time to stand up for myself and walk away from the people who had taken advantage of me for so long. The next few days felt different. I didn't have the overwhelming urge to reach out to Kate. I didn't even want to see her. She had made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. I was done pretending. Done with the lies. Done with the idea that family always comes first, even when that family doesn't value you. The wedding would go on without me, and honestly, I didn't care anymore. I had my own life to live, my own goals to achieve, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my own sister, stop me from doing what I needed to do. The only thing I had left to figure out was what kind of person I wanted to be in the aftermath of this betrayal. Days passed, and life, in a strange way, seemed to move on, even if I felt like I was stuck in the same place. My work at the shop became a kind of therapy. Each turn of a wrench, each engine I rebuilt, felt like a small victory against the pain of betrayal that still lingered. The more I worked with my hands, the more I realized how much I had neglected myself in the years I spent building everyone else's happiness. I had let my life become a reflection of the needs and desires of others, especially Kate. Now, I had a chance to reset, to rebuild from the ground up. I thought about calling my old friends, the ones I had distanced myself from because I was always too busy trying to be everything for Kate. I wondered what they were up to, if they had been waiting for me to come back into the fold. But something held me back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was pride. Either way, I knew that rebuilding my life wouldn't involve going back to the past. It meant carving out a new future, one that didn't revolve around anyone else but me. One night, as I sat at my kitchen table, sipping a cold beer and scrolling through social media, I came across a post that caught my eye. It was a picture of Kate and her fiancé, surrounded by friends and family, holding hands, smiling wide. The caption read, "Feeling so blessed to be surrounded by love and happiness. Grateful for all my wonderful people." My stomach churned as I stared at the picture. It was a reminder of everything I wasn't a part of, everything I had been excluded from. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness bubbling up again, but this time, I didn't let it consume me. I closed the app and set my phone down. I wasn't going to let her, or anyone else, have that kind of power over me anymore. I took a deep breath. The truth was, I didn't need her approval. I didn't need anyone's validation. I needed to find my own peace, my own happiness, and I had to stop waiting for others to give it to me. It was time to take ownership of my life. It wasn't easy. The days that followed were filled with a mix of reflection and introspection. I thought about the things I had let go of, my own dreams, my own ambitions, and it hurt to realize how much I had sacrificed. I had put so much energy into Kate's life, trying to ensure everything went perfectly for her, that I had lost sight of what I wanted. I had pushed aside my own dreams to support hers, and in return, I had gotten nothing but rejection. But now, I was starting to see that I didn't need her approval to move forward. I had already done enough. I had been more than supportive, I had given everything I could, and it was time to let go. I took a hard look at my shop. It had always been my escape, my sanctuary. But even that had become a place where I was constantly reminded of what I had given up. I had built my life around this place, but it was clear that I needed more than just work. I needed passion. I needed to find something that would fuel me beyond the routine of my day-to-day life. That's when I decided to start taking more risks. I hadn't been living my life to the fullest, always playing it safe and sticking to what I knew. But I wasn't going to let fear or uncertainty hold me back anymore. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I started taking on projects I had always been too hesitant to tackle: bigger cars, more complicated jobs. I even took on some custom orders, something I had always wanted to try but had never had the courage to do. It felt good, really good, to finally take control of my life again. But even as I was working on these projects, there was still a piece of me that felt like I had to prove something. Not to Kate, not to anyone else, but to myself. I had spent so long trying to be the perfect brother, the perfect son, the perfect man that I had forgotten what it felt like to simply be me. To be Jack. To be someone who did things because they mattered to me, not because they were expected of me. As I began to push myself out of my comfort zone, I found myself feeling more alive than I had in years. The satisfaction of completing a difficult project, of getting something just right, was better than any validation I had ever received. I was no longer waiting for someone else to tell me I was doing well. I was telling myself. It wasn't just my work that started to shift. I began to reconnect with people outside of my family, people who had once been close friends but whom I had lost touch with over the years. I wasn't trying to patch things up with Kate or anyone else. I was simply looking for connections that didn't feel like obligations. I started to learn that real relationships, ones that were healthy and supportive, were built on mutual respect, not just on what you could give or do for someone else. I went out for drinks with old friends, rejoined the gym I had abandoned, and even signed up for a cooking class, something I had always wanted to do but had never made time for. I found myself laughing more, enjoying the simple things, and remembering what it felt like to live for myself. Then one evening, as I sat on the couch after a long day, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Kate. "Jack, I've been thinking about everything, and I realize now that I hurt you. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far, but I was just so focused on making everything perfect that I lost sight of what mattered. I miss you, and I hope you can forgive me." For a moment, I just stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell her how much pain she had caused me, how much she had taken me for granted. But another part of me, the part that had started to heal, that had started to find peace, felt something else. I didn't feel the same overwhelming anger anymore. I didn't feel the need to lash out. I felt calm. I typed a response, taking my time with each word. "I appreciate your apology, Kate. And I hope you know I've moved on. I've spent too much time in the past, and I'm ready to look ahead. I'm happy for you and I hope you find the happiness you're looking for. But I'm done being the person you turn to when it's convenient. I have to live my own life now." I sent the message and set the phone down. I didn't need a response. I had said what I needed to say, and I knew, deep down, that it was time to close that chapter for good. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect. But for the first time in a long time, I was finally starting to live for myself. And that was enough. The days that followed felt different. Lighter, in a way. It wasn't just the weight of Kate's message lifting off my shoulders, it was something deeper, something more profound. It was the feeling that I had finally reclaimed my life from the shadows of obligation and regret. I was carving out a new path, and while it wasn't always clear where that path would lead, for the first time in years, I felt like I was walking it with intention. At the shop, I was busier than ever. Word had spread around town that I was doing custom work now, and people came in droves with ideas, visions of what they wanted their cars to be. I found myself getting excited about the possibilities, the chance to create something unique, to put a little bit of my soul into every project. I hadn't realized just how much I missed that feeling, the thrill of taking something raw and making it into something extraordinary. Every turn of the wrench was a reminder that I was capable of so much more than I had allowed myself to believe. But it wasn't just my work that was changing. My life outside of the shop began to evolve, too. I started spending more time with people who genuinely cared about me. I reconnected with my old friend, Kyle, who had always been the one to drag me out of my shell in the past. We met for drinks, laughed about the stupid things we used to do, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of something that wasn't dictated by family expectations or responsibilities. I also met someone new. Her name was Olivia, and she was unlike anyone I had ever known. She was free-spirited, confident, and totally uninterested in the drama that had consumed my life for so long. We met at a local art gallery one evening when I went there to check out a new exhibit. I hadn't planned on meeting anyone, but there she was, standing by a painting, her eyes fixed on it with such intensity that I felt like I was intruding on a private moment. We started talking, and before I knew it, hours had passed. She was passionate about photography and travel, and her stories about the places she had been, the adventures she had taken, were captivating. She made me realize how much of the world I had missed out on while I had been stuck in my own narrow bubble. I was so wrapped up in my family's expectations and trying to fix things for them that I had forgotten what it felt like to live for myself, to explore the world outside of my own little corner of it. Olivia encouraged me to take more risks. She pushed me to think bigger, to go after what I wanted without looking over my shoulder. She didn't try to fix me or make me feel like I was broken. Instead, she just allowed me to be who I was, and that was a revelation. I hadn't realized how much I had been suppressing myself in order to please others. We spent the next few weeks going on spontaneous adventures, weekend road trips, late-night walks in the city, lazy afternoons at the beach. With her, I rediscovered what it meant to be free, to live in the moment. For the first time in ages, I felt like I was allowed to enjoy life, without guilt or hesitation. But even as I was building a new life with Olivia and forging a stronger connection with Kyle, there was still a part of me that wondered about the consequences of my decisions. I had cut ties with Kate, I had let go of the weight that her expectations had placed on me, but what did that mean for my family? Would they understand why I had made the choices I did? Would they ever forgive me for stepping away from the roles they had assigned me? I had always been the reliable one, the steady hand in the family. But the truth was, I had been running on empty for years. I had poured everything I had into making sure everyone else was happy, making sure their lives were on track, while mine had been left to wither. There was no way I could keep living like that. And if that meant disappointing them, then so be it. A few weeks later, my mother called. Her voice was hesitant, and I could hear the familiar undercurrent of worry in her tone. She asked if we could talk, if I would meet her for lunch. I had been dreading this moment, but I knew it was coming. I agreed to meet her at a small cafe we used to visit when I was a kid. When I arrived, my mother was already sitting at a corner table, looking older than I remembered. She had always been the rock in our family, the one who held everything together, but now she looked fragile, as though the years of trying to manage everyone else's chaos had worn her down. We exchanged pleasantries, and I could tell she was nervous. After a few moments of awkward silence, she finally spoke. "Jack, I've been thinking a lot about you lately," she said, her voice soft. "I know I've never really understood your need for space, for time on your own. And I know I've relied on you more than I should have. But I want you to know, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the man you've become, and I see how hard you've worked to keep everything together. I just want you to know that I love you." Her words hit me harder than I expected. My mother had always been the type to hide her emotions, to push through everything with strength and resolve. To hear her admit that she had been wrong, that she saw the sacrifices I had made, it was a moment I had never anticipated. "I love you too, Mom," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "But I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being the one who fixes everything for everyone. I have to live for myself now." She nodded slowly, her eyes filled with tears. "I understand, Jack. I do. And I'm sorry for all the times I put too much on you. I just wanted to make sure you were always there, that you always had everything you needed. But you're right, you need to find your own path." It wasn't a perfect conversation, but it was a start. We didn't fix everything that day, but I could tell my mother understood. And for the first time, I didn't feel the crushing weight of responsibility that had always been there. I knew that I had made the right choice. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a sense of clarity. My relationship with my family would never be the same, and that was okay. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had spent so many years trying to be everything to everyone else that I had forgotten to be everything to myself. Now, I was ready to live for me. The weeks after that lunch with my mom felt like a period of intense growth. I'd taken the first step toward reclaiming my own life, but I knew there was still work to be done. I was no longer burdened by the expectations I had once carried around like a second skin. It was as though I had shed an old identity, one that was not truly mine, and had stepped into a new version of myself, a version that was allowed to be imperfect, allowed to make mistakes, but most importantly, allowed to be free. I was no longer the fixer, the person everyone turned to when things went wrong. And while that was liberating, it was also a bit scary. For the longest time, my role in the family had been to hold everything together, to be the reliable one. But now, with that role out of the picture, I had to face a new reality. I was just Jack. And that was enough. The shop had taken off in a way I hadn't expected. People were asking for my custom work more and more, and it seemed like the projects I was most passionate about were the ones that resonated with others. I had found a rhythm, working long hours, but also enjoying every minute of it. The buzz in the shop was palpable. I was surrounded by a team that respected me, and even though they could sense the change in me, they didn't make me feel like I had to explain myself. They were supportive, and that made all the difference. One night, after finishing up a project, Olivia and I took a walk under the stars. It was one of those nights where the sky felt endless, and for once, the weight of everything seemed light. We walked through the city, talking about everything and nothing at all. At one point, she turned to me with a grin and said, "You know, it's really amazing to see you so, at peace with everything. You're not running anymore, Jack." It struck me how true her words were. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from the weight of responsibility or hiding behind the expectations of others. I was standing still in the present moment, letting life happen without trying to control it all. It wasn't always easy, but it was freeing. A few days later, I received a letter from Kate. I hadn't heard from her since that night we had the confrontation. I wasn't sure what to expect, but as I sat down to read it, I could feel my heart racing. Her letter was brief, but it carried a weight that I wasn't prepared for. She started by apologizing for the way things had unfolded between us. She acknowledged that she had never truly understood the toll that her expectations had taken on me, and she admitted that, in her own way, she had been as lost as I was. "I've realized, Jack, that I've been living in the shadow of my own fears. I thought I was doing what was best for you, but I see now that I was holding you back from being who you were meant to be. I'm sorry for the pain I caused, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." Reading those words stirred something inside of me, a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because I knew that I hadn't been wrong in making the decision to step away, but sadness because I had never imagined it would take so much for her to see what had been right in front of her all along. She wasn't the villain in this story, but she had played a role that had hurt both of us. And now, I had to decide what to do with that. I wrote her back, not in anger or resentment, but in honesty. I told her that I understood her apology, and that, in time, I hoped we could rebuild something between us. But I also made it clear that I needed to keep moving forward. I couldn't go back to the person I had been, and I couldn't pretend to be someone else just to please her or anyone else. I was forging my own path now, and that was something I needed to honor. Sending that letter was harder than I expected. It was a final acknowledgement that the person I had been, the person they had wanted me to be, was gone. But it was also a statement of my new reality, that I was taking control of my life and that, while I couldn't change the past, I could shape my future. A few weeks passed, and I kept moving forward. Olivia and I continued our adventures, exploring new places, trying new things, and learning from each other. I could see the way my life was unfolding in front of me, and it felt good to be the one holding the pen this time. I had finally stopped allowing my story to be written by others. But it wasn't all easy. There were still moments of doubt, moments when I questioned whether I was doing the right thing. Sometimes, the old guilt would creep in, the nagging feeling that I wasn't doing enough for my family, that I wasn't living up to the image they had of me. But in those moments, I reminded myself of the freedom I had found. I reminded myself of the people who loved me for who I was, not for who they wanted me to be. One afternoon, as I was working on a new project at the shop, Kyle came by to check on me. He had always been the one to challenge me, to push me beyond my comfort zone, and now, he was the one reminding me that I was on the right path. "You've come a long way, man," he said, leaning against the workbench. "I remember when you first started this shop. You were so focused on everyone else's problems. You didn't even see what you were building for yourself." His words stuck with me, and for a moment, I let myself really think about how far I'd come. It wasn't just the shop that had changed, it was me. I had found a new purpose, one that wasn't defined by anyone else's expectations. And it felt like I was finally stepping into the person I had always been meant to be. That night, after work, I sat with Olivia on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I turned to her and smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle in my chest. I don't know where this journey is going, but for the first time, I'm excited to find out. And as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, I realized that this was my life now. A life built on my own terms, a life that I had fought for and earned. No more running. No more hiding. Just living.